Hello and welcome to this lecture on Adobe Illustrator by Eduonix Technologies. In this lecture, I'm going to be going into Illustrator's 3D tools. Extrude and bevel, revolve, and rotate. Compared to some of the other videos, this is going to be a pretty quick one. So let's start off by creating a square. So the first thing to go into, and these are all under Effect in 3D, first thing I'm going to go to is actually rotate. As you can see, a box pops up. Now when I hit preview, this blue face right here corresponds to how the object's going to be turned. I can actually move things around in this little circle. I can rotate it. And I can actually move this freely with the mouse. And then as you see, there's dials over here. These come in really handy. As you can see, I'm just going to use my mouse wheel here. And I am rotating this slowly. Now under more options, there's not a whole lot for 3D rotate. So let's take a look at another one real quick, and that's revolve. Probably the third most useful one, but definitely comes in handy. So I'm going to create a little half of a shape here, and revolve has a lot to do with symmetry, or symmetry has a lot to do with revolve, however you want to say it. So I have this half shape here, and I'm going to go to Effect, 3D, Revolve. Hit Preview. There's the most important option here is left edge or right edge. If I revolve this on the right edge, as you can see, it basically takes this shape and it spins it around, and you can see that with the wireframe. Now on surface, I can actually switch it to wireframe if I want to get a more precise look at what this shape is going to look like before I end up rasterizing it. Or not rasterizing it, but before I press OK. And it also cuts down on the time it takes to render things in between. So you get it to where you want it with a wireframe, and then you change it to either one of these options. Diffuse shading or plastic shading. Plastic shading gives it more of a shine. Now, as you can see, it's pretty much the same as with rotate, except in this case you're actually rotating a three-dimensional object. So let's get it down like this a little bit. And there's a lot of options here for light. Just remember that. I'm going to show you those in Extrude and Bevel. So I'm going to hit OK. But before I do that, let's take a look at offset. As you can see, if I hit offset, it moves the distance out that this is being rotated and creates a space right here. Basically, I'll just show you by playing with it. But before I do that, let's switch this to a solid color so you can really see what's going on here. Now, I just got out of my extrude and bevel. With any effect, when you want to get back into it, click on the Appearance tab over here, scroll down, and we'll be getting more into appearance and other effects later. And you can actually click on the effect that you have, and you can continue to edit it. Until you hit expand, until you rasterize, or until you flatten it, effects are still editable. So, taking a look at offset, if I change this to about half of what it was, the circle gets half as small. And as far as entering a negative value, it does nothing, it just converts it back to 0. So, that's 3D Revolve. Pretty handy actually. Try it with different shapes, not just with a sphere. And another thing to mention, and I meant a half oval, not a sphere. Another thing to mention is that with effects, you can change the original shape of the object, and the effects will follow. The thing I like to use this particular 3D tool for is creating things like this. Little bowls, little shapes. So using combinations of transform, rotate, envelope, distort, you can create a lot of really cool options here. Modern art. Okay, so let's take a look at the last and most useful one, and that is 3D Extrude and Bevel. I'm going to show you the last of the options. These are presets right here. As you can see, it corresponds directly to the shape. That's why I used a square. Same as anything else, if you rotate it, the shape will follow suit. If I set this to front, and I want to get a very specific rotation, like just a little bit to the left, I would just scroll this with my mouse wheel. And since it's 3D, you want to give it just the tiniest bit of top view. Then I would use this to reorient it. Or if you prefer, just use this model right here. It's pretty handy. You can tell exactly what your shape's going to look like when you let go. So I'm going to show you the rest of the options here because they're the most useful for 3D Extrude and Bevel. Extrude depth, as you can see, pretty self-explanatory. The more I increase it, the fatter my image gets. If I bring this down to 1, I can get about the same effect as 3D rotate. If I wanted to make just like if I wanted to start drawing a plane of glass, I would give it something like 5, maybe even less. So that's what extrude depth does. Cap, as you can see, makes it hollow. And then there's bevel. Let's choose classic bevel and turn cap to solid. Playing with the light so you can tell. Let's actually turn this to wireframe so you can see what's going on with the bevel. As you can see, a bevel bevels the front face and the back face of the object. That's classic. There's complex. Complex number 2. Now watch what happens if we put this on diffuse shading. This would be the first step in creating a cool little Illustrator box, like a jewelry box or something. Now let's take a look at lighting, and there's a lot more bevel options to choose from. I suggest you try them all. You can create some pretty cool stuff. But let's put it back on, actually let's put it on rounded, a nice even round. I think rolling would be best. So on diffuse shading you only have a few options. So let's put it on plastic shading. As you can see, we have shine, its highlight intensity and highlight size. If I increase this to 100, the intensity of the light in the area where it is greater. If I decrease the highlight size, the area of the light goes down. As you can see, 75 right here. If I put the blend steps to 5, it'll only use 5 steps blending in between the shine and the darkness. You want to keep this higher. The higher you go, the more crisp it looks, but the longer it takes things to render. And when you finally do expand this, the more individual little tiny line shapes you'll have. You'll see when I'm done here. But I'm going to put it on 25. Preserve spot colors is when you're using a spot color and it needs to still be there. I don't have any spot colors, but you pretty much understand what this is if you've seen the lecture on color. And if you haven't, you're watching these in the wrong order, so go back. Ambient light, if I were to increase this to 100, it would make it very bright. If I decrease this to 0, the only thing that comes into play is highlight intensity and highlight size. Play around with these options, but know what they mean here first. Light intensity is generally good to have at a really high number. When I turn that down, you just get less variation in between. Since the whole point of this is to show it as a 3D shape, I usually have that cranked up. Shading color, you're going to want to keep on black generally. If I change this to custom, instead of using black to shade it, it's using the custom color I chose. But let's keep that on black. Now right here is one of the most useful things. This is the angle the light is coming from. If I put this in the upper left corner, it's as if light is shining on it in this direction. If I put it straight on, it's as if you're shining a flashlight light right on this thing. So that's Adobe Illustrator, extrude and bevel in a nutshell. Now I'm going to show you what I was talking about earlier with expand and blend steps. When I want to make this its own shape, I go to expand, and as you can see there's a bunch of lines in between here. What I can do is copy the shape, paste it in front. As you can see, those lines have already gone away. What we really want to do is go to Pathfinder, Unite, and we're going to push this shape to the back. It's Control Shift left bracket. Then we can group these together. And as you can see, you don't have those pesky white lines anymore. These are the blend steps I was talking about. Anyway, as you can see, extrude and bevel is a pretty cool tool. I can expand, I can envelope distort these things as well. So I just undid my actions until it's back in the original state. I'm going to hit envelope distort. And with these two combinations, the sky is the limit. Just cycling through them with my mouse wheel. So there you have it. Thanks for watching, and we'll be going into some even cooler tools as we go on further into the effects panels.